consumers is potentially unlikely.
Consumers, as a part of signing up for Honey, did agree to an arbitration agreement and a class action waiver, meaning we probably couldn't bring a class action on behalf of consumers. Although I say probably, I reserve the right to change my mind. That doesn't mean they don't have a claim. It just means that if there is a claim, they have to go to an individualized arbitration. That is something that could potentially transpire.
But I will say he did also add that right now, he doesn't know if that'll happen because he's focused on creator claims, not consumer ones. But also with this, that is not where today's news on this ends, because there are now reports that Honey has lost 3 million users since all this backlash and the allegations started unfolding. With those reports seeming to rely on the Wayback Machine, because if you go to November, before all this came out, the Chrome web store reportedly said Honey had 20 million users. But now when you look at it, it says 17 million. And while it's only 15% of its users, that's still a huge chunk. And so for now, it's a waiting game. We're gonna have to see where these allegations and the lawsuit take us and what else we learn from here and if there's even more fallout. And what you think or comment on that, let me just say, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. I missed y'all over the break. I hope you had a good Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, good end of the year. But with the first few days of 2025 showed us anything, is going to be a year. But at the very least, I will say, while there are so many things up in the air, uncertain, people are anxious, know that you can be certain that there is going to be a brand new Philip DeFranco show every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Usually at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. But with that said, let's just jump back into it with this news. Let's talk about two hugely important but quick pieces of US news. The first is that hundreds of thousands of people have now been left without power, and at least 3 people are dead due to a severe winter storm that spread from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, as of midday today, almost 300,000 people across a handful of states were without power, with nearly 90,000 of those coming from Virginia alone. Because the storms are affecting such huge parts of the country, snow totals vary from place to place. But according to NBC News, 62 million people are under winter weather alerts, and some areas could see their highest snowfall in a decade or more, making travel very dangerous. Right in Kansas City, for instance, they got 11 inches of snow, which is their 4th largest single calendar day on record. Topeka got 14 inches, which is their 3rd largest single day snowfall. And this also, as you have the Washington Post reporting that there were at least 3 fatalities in the Midwest due to 2 traffic incidents. But you also have NPR saying that the storm has killed at least 4 people in total, with them also adding that dozens more have been injured, and there have been hundreds of calls for help on the roads all the way from Kansas to Virginia. There's also been a lot of cancellations, right? Major cities like Philadelphia, Baltimore, and DC closed schools. Almost 2,000 flights have been canceled too. And so largely, this quick story is just to remind you, if this storm is impacting you, please fucking be careful. If your local officials are warning against travel, listen. There are dangerous travel conditions all over, so stay as safe as you can. Especially since even after the storm clears, it's looking like severely cold weather is gonna be staying for much of the impacted areas. So, just do what you can to stay as safe as possible, especially because this is hitting different areas in different ways. But then, with that said, the other bit of big but quick news in the States is that Trump's 2024 victory has officially been certified. And the reason it's quick news is because no one stormed the Capitol. Because, other than 4 years ago, this is largely like a quick and bureaucratic thing. In fact, the whole count just took 30 minutes, with Vice President Harris overseeing her own loss and previous Vice President Mike Pence tweeting, "I welcome the return of order and civility to these historic proceedings, saying the peaceful transfer of power is the hallmark of our democracy, and today, members of both parties in the House and Senate, along with the Vice President, certified the election of our new President and Vice President without controversy or objection," with him later adding that he found it particularly admirable that Vice President Harris would preside over the certification of a presidential election that she lost. Now, with all that said, moving on to something completely unrelated, the Washington Post just censored a Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial cartoonist over a Trump cartoon. That is what the cartoonist herself, Ann Telnace, is claiming after the paper refused to publish a cartoon that she made mocking its owner, Jeff Bezos. And for context, the inspiration behind this drawing was the veritable parade of tech and media tycoons in and out of Mar-a-Lago since the election to meet with Donald Trump, with those including Bezos, who announced that Amazon would donate $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund and make another $1 million in-kind contribution. And so in the cartoon, which never made it past the rough sketch, you see Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and OpenAI Sam Altman kneeling before a statue of Trump and offering him sacks of cash, with Mickey Mouse also lying face down in either submission or adoration on the ground, with that presumably referring to Disney's decision to settle Trump's defamation suit against ABC last month for $16 million. And then lastly, of the billionaire Los Angeles Times owner Patrick Soon-Shiong there holding a tube of lipstick, with that seemingly referring to his decision to block the Times from endorsing Kamala Harris for president. Now with this, according to Telnace, she submitted the sketch before Christmas, but her editor refused to take it, so she threatened to resign, but he didn't budge, and so now she's quit her job, with her announcing in a Substack post over the weekend I've worked for the Washington Post since 2008 as an editorial cartoonist. I've had editorial feedback and productive conversations and some differences about cartoons I have submitted for publication, but in all that time, I've never had a cartoon killed because of who or what I chose to aim my pen at. Until now. With then adding, I doubt my decision will cause much of a stir and that it will be dismissed because I'm just a cartoonist, but I will not stop holding truth to power through my cartooning because, as they say, democracy dies in darkness. With this, you also had the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists, of which Telnaze is a member and a past president, agreeing with her and writing. The AAEC condemns the Post and their ethical weakness. Editorial cartooning is the tip of the spear in opinion, and the Post's cowering further soils their once stellar reputation for standing up and speaking truth to power. We weep for the loss of this once great newspaper. But then on the other side of this, you had the Post editorial page editor David Shipley defending his decision not to publish the cartoon, telling NPR, "Not every editorial judgment is a reflection of a malign force. My decision was guided by the fact that we had just published a column on the same topic as the cartoon and had already scheduled another column, this one a satire, for publication. The only bias was against repetition." Now also with this, you do have some noting this wasn't the first time one of Telnaze's cartoons had been shelved, with people pointing to in 2015, the Post initially publishing and then retracting a sketch depicting Ted Cruz's young daughters as monkeys, with the Post explaining at the time that its editorial policy was to leave children out of it. But then also, whether its decision to snub Telnaze was justified or not, this is far from the only drama that the Washington Post has been involved in recently, with easily one of the most covered and talked about examples being when Jeff Bezos decided to block the paper from endorsing Harris just days before the election, with Bezos expressing regret over the timing but defending the decision in principle. Though notably, many of their readers did not agree, with 300,000 people canceling their digital subscriptions by election day according to NPR, which reportedly amounted to some 12% of all digital subscriptions, and even had some employees leaving their posts, including 3 editorial board staffers and a contributing writer. And then, in December, a Post editor blocked an article about the departure of managing editor Matea Gold, who was a contender for the rank of executive editor before she quit, with a saying there, acting executive editor Matt Murray accepting responsibility for the decision and reportedly telling editors the Post should not cover itself. And this also coming after more than a year of embarrassing stories from the Post's own reporters about its publisher and chief executive, Will Lewis, with sources reportedly alleging that he tried but failed to pressure the Post not to report on accusations that he helped cover up the British phone hacking scandal at Rupert Murdoch's tabloids over a decade ago. But with that, he has repeatedly denied those claims, but the tension between himself and the Post's rank and file seems only to have grown sharper. But then, taking a quick break from the news, have you ever been to a dentist who wants to chat with you while they're cleaning your teeth? Or a therapist who only has openings in the middle of your workday? Or definitely a biggie, a 6-month wait to get in for a visit with anyone? Well, I'm here to remind you that you don't have to settle anymore when it comes to finding the right doctor, especially as I've personally had great experiences using today's sponsor, ZocDoc. Like, they're not just a sponsor. I love this service because ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental, primary care to urgent care and more. You can search by location, availability, and insurance, right? There's no compromise here because you've got more options than you know. Plainly put, ZocDoc helps you find and book doctors from family physicians to specialists who prioritize your health and let you know upfront if they take your insurance. Also, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Phil to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Phil. ZocDoc.com/Phil. Then, switching gears to international news, most of the international news today has to deal with Elon Musk. Because while he has established himself as one of the most powerful players in American politics, he's also increasingly flexing his political muscle on the global stage as well. Whereas places like the Washington Post have described it, Musk appears to be applying a playbook similar to the one he used to disrupt American politics, now boosting conservative politicians in the governments of the United States' top allies. But with them also adding, quote, his disregard for the veracity of his posts and his elevation of far-right and extremist figures have alarmed liberal leaders around the world. Though with that, we're not talking about a completely new phenomenon, right? Musk has stirred up controversy abroad before. But what we're seeing is that in 2025, he may be stepping it up a notch. With a post again, for example, claiming that in the first few days of the new year, Elon Musk commandeered global politics through dozens of rapid-fire, often inflammatory posts to his 210 million followers on X. And so with all this, let's start with the UK, because that is where Musk has directed the most of his attention, at least outside of the United States. With, for example, the New York Times here claiming that the billionaire has a strange fixation fixation with trolling Britain. And to that point, something that's been reported on before is that Musk was among those sharing false and inflammatory posts after the killing of 3 girls and a stabbing at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in the town of Southport last summer. With that then being followed by what NBC News called far-right riots across several cities in the country. But specifically, what we're seeing this time is that Musk is among those criticizing the recently elected Labour Party government for its handling of child abuse scandals going back decades. Right, and a lot of this, it comes from a 2014 report, which is the fourth in a series of reports commissioned in 2022, finding that roughly 1,400 children had been sexually abused in the town of Rotherham over a 16-year period. And very notably, the report found that most perpetrators